Right, there we go. I'm going to try this one more time. I've had a few requests to start up the YouTube channel again. So let's see if I can share my screen. There we go. Looks like we are there. Okay. So like I wanted to say, I had a few requests to start up this YouTube channel again, see if we can help a few learners in consumer studies on answering questions and getting through the work and studying work. So we'll see how this goes. I'm just testing it out for now. Whoops. There we go. Why is it doing that? Don't do that. Don't do that. There we go. Okay. We'll see how it goes and if we've got time and how all of this works out. For today, I will just do a food and nutrition question and help you guys out with how to answer them. Okay, so starting off with reading a scenario below and answer the questions that follow. A group of flood victims were staying at a local church hall for a while. They had to share the toilets and eating utensils available. There was no running water. Many fell ill after they returned home, and they were diagnosed with hepatitis A at the local clinic. So I just want to get my highlighter in the exams. It's a good thing to have a highlighter handy to highlight anything that's important. In this case, for 351, name 2 symptoms that the flood victims may have shown. So I'm going to highlight 2 symptoms that the flood victims may have shown. We always have to look at mark allocation. 2 symptoms, 2 marks. That means a mark per symptom. Give a reason why the symptoms only appeared after they returned home. So the symptoms only appeared after they returned home. That's 1 mark, and it makes sense because they ask for a reason. Then 353, write a paragraph, that's important, explaining how the disease could spread, that's very important, so easily amongst the flood victims. And then that is 4 marks. So when they ask in a paragraph, know that you are not allowed to answer your question in bullet point form. Your sentences have to follow each other. So where one stops, the next sentence needs to start. And if they're giving us 4 marks in this question, it means that they're going to award 1 mark per way of or explanation of how the disease spread. Right, so it's going to be 1 mark per fact. Now, once I've read through the questions, I advise my learners to go back to the case study and then with your highlighter, highlight the information that you know you're going to need to answer the questions. So reading again, a group of flood victims. That's important because it's got to do with water. That means water contamination. They stayed at a local church hall for a while. They had to share the toilets and the eating utensils. That's important. That's unhygienic. And there was no running water. Unhygienic. Okay. Many fell ill after they returned home. I know. Okay. After they returned home. They didn't get sick immediately, only later. That means that there was a time period between when they were infected and when they showed symptoms. Now, we call that period the incubation period. And then lastly, they were diagnosed with hepatitis A. That's very important. So let's now start with answering the questions. Okay. In 351, they are asking you to name 2 symptoms. You can now answer this question in bullet point form. When we deal with our foodborne diseases, we have symptoms that are general symptoms, which means that they will be the same for the other foodborne diseases as well. We are currently discussing, or in this curriculum this year, we are doing hepatitis A, gastroenteritis, and E. coli. Now, for those 3 foodborne diseases, there are many symptoms that are the same. For instance, fever or chills or sweats at night, nausea, vomiting, body aches and pains, abdominal cramps, because those are symptoms that we can relate to these diseases. Okay, but then for any disease, there must be a distinguishing symptom that makes it hepatitis A and not E. coli. So it's very important that you know these distinguishing symptoms. For hepatitis A, it is going to be the yellowing of the skin and white parts of the eyes, right? Another symptom of hepatitis A is dark colored urine and clay colored stools. And any other distinguishing symptoms, not that I can think of, but in this question, you could have answered the easier symptoms: fever, abdominal cramps. I will show you later what all the other answers is in the marking guideline once we've finished. Then 352. Give a reason, so that means just one reason, why the symptoms only appeared after they returned home. So what we see here is that the people were infected, they stayed at the local church, and when they got home, they only started to show symptoms and only started to show that they were sick. Now, why is that? Well, because the incubation period, and for hepatitis A, this is 15, sorry for that. That is, I just want to get that out of the way. The incubation period is 15 to 50 days. You could, however, also say it is 3 to 5 weeks. Or we know from our notes, it is an average of 28 days. You do not have to mention all of them. You only have to mention one of them. Just know that you, as a consumers, you have to know the days and the weeks. So you need to know that 15 days is actually seen as 3 weeks. Okay. And then the average 28 days. So for your other diseases as well, if the incubation period is 1 to 7 days, you need to know that it can be up to 1 week. If the incubation period is 28 days, you need to know that that's up to 4 weeks. So you need to know the days and the weeks. In this case, though, when you answer, you only have to give one of them. Right. Then 353. Write a paragraph explaining how the disease could spread. So when we talk about the spreading of the disease, it is the transmission of the disease. And when they ask paragraph, grade 12, please make sure that you answer in a paragraph, that you are not answering in bullet points. Okay, you are going to lose a mark. We subtract a mark at the end of the year. So where your one sentence ends, your next sentence needs to start. So this is probably where I would go back to my case study or my scenario and see what information they can give me on why these people got sick. Often or sometimes the information or the answer will be straightforward, and other times you have to interpret. So a group of flood victims were staying at a local church. Now, guys, when there's flooding, to me, that means that there's water contamination. They were staying at a local church hall for a while, and they had to share the toilets and the eating utensils available. Okay, so that one is pretty straightforward for me. So my first answer is going to be, they shared toilets and eating utensils, which is unhygienic. Did I spell that correctly? Not inhygienic, unhygienic. Which is unhygienic. We also see there that there were no running water. Many fell ill after they returned home. So I can see that there was no running water there. was no clean running water to wash their hands or utensils. Right. Then I can also see there they were diagnosed with hepatitis A at the local clinic. So now what I've got is 2 facts that I got straight from the case study. I did say about the flood victims, the water contamination. So I am also going to answer the water was contaminated and they might have used the contaminated water to prepare food. And if you do that, you use contaminated water to prepare food, you are most probably going to get sick. Then I also see here again, they were staying at a local church hall for a while. That means that there was loads of people living in a small area. So people were living close to one another, and that makes the spreading of a disease much easier. And then another thing that I'm just thinking of is that when in South Africa, we actually get vaccinated against hepatitis A. So if these people were not vaccinated, they could have contracted hepatitis A much easier. If the people were not vaccinated against hepatitis A, they will contract the disease easier. Okay, so I think I have at least 4 ways of this, or 4 ways of this disease being transmitted. Let's go and see what our marking guidelines actually said. So for number 351, the symptoms. Okay, so there's the yellowing of the skin and the eyes, which is jaundice. Remember, it's infective jaundice is the other word or the other name for hepatitis A. Then you can have fever and sweats. Now you can see it's fever or sweat. You are not going to get 2 marks if you say fever and if you say sweat, or if you say fatigue and you say tiredness, because they consider them to actually mean the same thing. So you'll only get 1 mark. Loss of appetite. Remember, you're not feeling well, you're nauseous, you're vomiting, you don't want to eat. There's diarrhea and a running stomach, nausea, dark urine, which we mentioned, clay-colored stools, which we've mentioned, vomiting, joint pain, abdominal pains, and discomfort around the liver. Remember, hepatitis A is a viral infection of the liver. There are other diseases in terms of hepatitis B, hepatitis C. We do not discuss that. In hepatitis A is a viral infection of the liver. Then for 352, the reason why these symptoms appeared after they returned home. The incubation period of hepatitis A is 15 to 50 days, average of 28, or if you said 3 to 5 weeks, so you'll get a mark for any of those times. Or if you just say that it takes a while for the symptoms to show. I would suggest, and my advice is to use the days or the weeks in your answer and not to give a general answer as it will take time. Right. Then 353 is where we had to write in a paragraph. So let's see. They shared toilets, ablution, washing facilities, eating utensils, poor sanitation, lack of personal hygiene. Did we say anything about sharing? They had to share toilets. Perfect. So we are going to get this tick number 1 also in our first answer. It was unhygienic because they had to share. Then we said there were no clean running water to wash their hands or utensils. Let's see. They were not vaccinated. Oh, we said something about vaccinated people, right? So this tick, the unvaccinated people, is our last answer. No, second to last answer. Where was that? Did we say about the unvaccinated people? No. If the people were not vaccinated against Hep A, they will contract the disease much easier. So we'll get tick number 2 there. Oh, we actually will get 3 marks to say that they will contract the disease much easier. So copying that. So the first mark was actually going to go to tick number 2 was actually going to say that they were not vaccinated. My apologies. And that they will then contract the disease much easier. People housed in close contact to each other. We said that people were living close to one another. So we can also get that tick number 4. Yeah, people were living close to one another, and that makes the spreading of the disease much easier. Apologies for the bell. I'm actually currently at school doing this in my off period. Okay, so we've now got the maximum amount of marks, but I'm pretty sure that we would have received a mark for the water was contaminated. Let's see. There was not enough clean running water to wash themselves. There was not enough running water for the cleaning the eating utensils. Prepared food could have been prepared by infected people, or the available food or water could have been contaminated. That last tick number 8 here for us. The water was contaminated, and they might have used the contaminated water to prepare food. So we've actually answered more than what the question asked for. We gave 5 explanations, and they only asked for 4. So a marker is going to go, and in this answer, they will mark until you have 4 marks. But obviously, if you don't have 4 correct answers, they will mark how many ever you have correct. So I hope that this have helped. And I will see if we can do a few other questions on other topics as well in the future. Let's see how this goes. Enjoy your day, guys.